Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the RepPath Podcast. Today, guys, we're going to talk about something extremely important, and that's how to properly network. Now, I know I speak to you guys every day, and to be quite frankly, there's some of you that do it right, but there's a lot that do it wrong. Okay, so reaching out just to reach out is not going to work, but we're going to dive into that in more detail. Before we do, as always, guys, please make sure any questions from this moment on, please send them into the chat and we'll address them about halfway through the show. For anybody that wants to see a copy of this podcast or any of our other content that we have, please go on YouTube to my YouTube channel, the RepPath Academy, and click the link below, subscribe. It's 100% free. You'll be able to see this podcast and the tons of other content that we have there, covering a wide range of topics. But all of this with the intention, guys, to help you break into this industry or to find your next role. Okay. So for all of you, that brings up even a more important point. For any of you that are not familiar with the RepPath Academy, please go on my website, reppath.com. You could click the link right there below and go on the Academy. You could see the companies that we work with, more of the commonly asked questions, some of the individuals that have graduated from the Academy and found roles. You could see their testimonials down there, guys. They're just like you. There's no one that starts in this academy with an edge. These are all individuals that don't have contacts, don't have sales experience. Some don't have degrees. Some come from different backgrounds that's not associated with sales or medical sales. Guys, you're not different. We've helped all these individuals in your position to get there. So please go on reppath.com, learn more, and schedule an appointment with me. If you have any further questions, or if you're really serious about breaking into the academy, you can DM me or book an appointment right through the website. Okay, awesome. So let's dive right in, guys. Networking. One of the most important things you could do in this industry. Every day I hear candidates reach out and go, Joe, but I don't have someone that's a doctor in my family. I don't have someone that is a VP, for a medical sales company. Guys, no one does. Okay. There are few people that do have those connections, but everyone that we work with in the academy, and majority of the reps that I help break into this industry, or reps that do it on their own, they don't have contacts. They make their contacts. And that's very important. There's individuals that have never even heard of some of these companies, and they're able to build relationships quickly to the point where they're not even hired by the company yet. And it feels like they already work there, because that's how strong the relationships have been built. And that's the effort that they put in. But one of the disclaimers I'm going to say right off the bat, guys, it doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of work and effort. So for all you that really want to break in, I hear this every day. I really want to break in. I really want to do this. And then we start mapping out the plan, and all of a sudden the excuses start coming out. Well, how long is this going to take? I have a full-time job. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that because I don't get done till late at night. Guys, all nonsense. If you're going to make excuses, don't get into this industry. Just say it straight out. Don't even try. If you're not going to make excuses, though, and you really want to make it happen, then you got to put the work in. And if you put the work in, you're going to be able to break in. And one of the first tips that I'm going to give all you guys right off the bat that a lot of you are not doing enough of, the whole point of networking is to get yourself noticed, is for people to even know you exist, never mind wanting to break into to their company. So the very first thing, every single one of you can do this today, and that's by start posting on LinkedIn. Post. If you want to get into medical sales, I don't even care if you post, I want to get into medical sales. Can you help me? And that's your post for the day. Okay. Let people know. Don't just go by the open to work banner that a lot of you guys put on your LinkedIn profile. Of course, that helps too, but post, show people that you're really interested in this industry. If you find an interesting article, repost it, but put your thoughts in. If you really if there's a sales tip that you listened or learned to, if there's a resume tip that someone told you, share it. If you have a question, share it, but show people that you're clinically curious to be in this industry, that you really want this. You don't have to be a 25-year veteran to give advice. You don't have to be a 25-year veteran to ask a question, or to post an article. But majority of you don't do this. And there's some individuals out there that they do it so well. I think they've been in this industry for years and they haven't. They've only been doing it a year. And so that's how powerful and how easy it is. Just start posting. Let people know that you want to be in medical sales. Show that you're interested. Think of it as proving to someone who your favorite football team is. They don't need to know. They see that because a lot of you do this on Facebook and other sites, where you'll post your Giants hat or your Knicks banner, or there's a million, pictures of you wearing your favorite team's gear, going to games. Like, I know by going on people's Facebook accounts, I have a pretty good idea who their favorite team is, because they're going to show it. So why not take that same approach and show what your favorite industry is? You don't have to make it a secret. Well, another quick tip, not only with posting on LinkedIn, guys, are you responding to anyone the company that you want to work for if they post? Now, for instance, if you want to work for Stryker in the Dallas territory, as an associate sales rep, and you see some of those reps that are already there and they're posting or they're liking things, get on their page. If they post something, definitely like it. Definitely add a comment. This is how you're going to get recognized, guys. If they're posting it, they're going to see that. They're going to see who you are. When you actually get an interview and then they go on your LinkedIn account, which they all do, do you want them to see nothing? Should it be a blank page? If you have an opportunity for people to see this, don't you want to see and prove to them that this is all you care about is medical sales? You have such a strong passion. Your banner, the picture behind your head, have it something medically related or sales related, something that has something to do with what you're looking to do. And I get some of you work for different companies and you can't post, make it obvious, but there's still ways that you can make it be known that you're interested in this industry. Having a blank banner behind your head is unacceptable. And a lot of you do it, guys. Don't waste that space. That's an opportunity. It's like a billboard. For anybody that's paid for billboards like I have in the past, those things cost a lot of money, a lot. So this is free. Just post something that shows your interest in this background. I'm telling you guys, you're going to get noticed more. So you can post right away. You can put a banner that shows that you're interested. You could also like and respond to other people's contacts. If you want to work at that company, guys, start interacting with people at XYZ company. If it's Stryker, if it's Medline, ConMed, Smith & Nephew, Arthrex, start interacting with these people. Show that you care, because this is going to help you. A lot of times, if you're doing that ahead of time, the openings are going to constantly come up, right? So you don't want to reach out when there's an opening and be that obvious rep that the only reason why you're reaching out is to get a job. And you're here to help me. And it's going to be you helping me the whole time. And that's the way this is going to work. Guys, it's obvious. Nobody wants to help someone that just came out of the blue and is only there for a job opening and is making it all about them. Now, if you've been posting the past couple of months, you're interacting with their content, you're showing that medical is where your passion is. Do you know how much more likely they are to help you out? Guys, it doesn't take much time. The post takes seconds sometimes. Put a little time in it, maybe a couple minutes. I'm not saying post every day, but at least once or twice a week. That's not a lot to ask. All of you can do that. Start doing that now. This is something you can do before you reach out to anyone. Okay. Now let's dive into when you're actually, reaching out. And you want to shift the purpose of networking from, help me get a job. I want you to help me get a job. All right. And a lot of you, again, I did this same approach and I screwed up. I would reach out to people. I saw there was an opening, I really want this. How can you help me get that job? And it's a terrible approach, guys. You're making it about you. All right. Remember everything you do. I say this on every podcast. It's a reflection of a sales call. The whole interview process is a reflection of a sales call. So when you go and call on a doctor and you say to a doctor, hey doctor, I'm having this problem and help me out, help me. It's all about me. The doctor's not going to want you in there. He's not going to give a shit. You're supposed to be helping them. They're the customer. You're supposed to be providing value. It's the same thing when you're reaching out to reps. Don't just use these people as the stepping stone to get to the hiring manager. This person's not important, but they could get me info and help me out to get to the hiring manager. No, they're very important. They are the gatekeeper, just like the receptionist is when you go to the doctor. If you're nasty to that receptionist or you don't give a shit about that receptionist, you think that individual is going to let you go in the back and speak to the doctor? No. I mean, I've seen it myself where there were receptionists when I first started that hated me. They were so just disgusted every time I walked in the room that they would never let me go in the back. But then once I started giving them more time, showing them that they mattered, made it about them, that over time, I built a relationship where they would say, Joe, Gad, he's free. You could run back in there and they'll help you out. It's the same thing when you're approaching these people. So when you're reaching out to them, guys, just like with your customers, you have to diagnose what their pain points are. What are their challenges? And then you have to focus and position yourself as the solution. So a lot of you, for instance, you get on the call and, tell me about the job, tell me about the day in the life, and then you write down these notes, whatever the questions are, you're taking good notes, but you're never really providing that you're the solution. All right. Because say it's something that you're not the solution for. You want to be honest with someone. You want to be straight up. You shouldn't, to be honest with you guys, if that's the case, you shouldn't be going for that job. For instance, say crazy that we're looking for a vice president, or our biggest problem right now is that we don't have a CEO. Until we have that fit, we're never going to be able to get to the next level. Now, obviously, you're not the CEO. You're not going for that job. And that's going to be tough to help that challenge. But if you're asking them, what are some of the challenges in the role? And then they start explaining to you, well, one of them is access, and also, it's selling a Me Too product, or whatever the other challenges are. You have to go, oh, I totally understand that. I know how challenging that access is. In my previous role, we had a lot of access issues getting in front of customers. And it doesn't mean that you have to be in another medical sales role. This is where you got to show your transferable skills, how you've approached something like that in the past. It could be, oh, you know what? All these doctors are difficult. That's one of the biggest challenges is that they're very demanding and they're a real pain in the ass. That could be a real answer that someone says. And again, instead of just going, okay, make notes, doctors are really a pain in the ass and they're really challenging. Got it. What else can you tell me? No, you got to hear that objection that they get is that doctors are a pain in the ass and they're constantly, a challenge. I totally understand that. In my last role, as a server for, Applebee's, I'm constantly dealing with difficult customers who always want things their way and they're always very demanding. So you got to hear their concerns and then provide solutions, and make it about them to get them to be a happy customer, blah, blah, blah. Now, it sounds ridiculous, but it's real. That's a real answer showing that you've done that and you've handled that challenge in the past and how you were able to overcome that. Let them know that you're a solution. Guys, if you're not providing solutions, why should they help you? Think of that. If you didn't provide, if you got on a networking call, and for you, again, we all think this way. It's about you. You got to get that out of your head. What can I talk to this person about? What were some of the challenges they told me? And did I provide a solution? By hiring me, do I make them stronger? Did I provide some sort of solution to their problems? And if the answer is no, then you shouldn't get a call back. But you got to think that way, guys, before you get on these calls, and you may not have an answer right away, but you got to come back to them at some point and show that you're thinking about what their challenges are and how you can provide that solution. Because if not, why should they hire you? But the ones that do this, they're the ones that outshine the reps that have been doing medical sales for 10 years. And they didn't even spend 10 minutes in the industry. And you go, how the heck did they get that job? Who did he know? You'll hear that a lot. Who did that person know? His father or his mother probably works at the company. I get it. You know what? His family, they got a lot of doctor friends. One of their doctor friends probably reached out and said, do me a favor and hire him. No, guys, majority of the time, it's that person, they network tenaciously. They found out what the problems were, what their pain points were, but they didn't stop there. Then they provide a solution on how they're a fit and how they can solve whatever situation or challenge is going on there. That's how they got in. Don't make excuses for yourself and say they probably knew someone. No, you know what? They built enough strong relationships by showing their value where they got stronger relationships in a short time period because they provided value. It's the same thing in medical sales. And that the hiring manager is going to see this because you have to provide value with your physicians, and that's going to help your relationship. That's going to make the doctors, when they have 10 products to choose from, use Joe, because Joe is constantly bringing value. He's not just coming in and making it about me. I'm making it about my customers and bringing value to them. Okay. So again, identify those pain points and provide a solution if you want to get noticed and you want to build that relationship. Another thing, guys, when you're speaking to these reps, you got to go deeper. Okay. A lot of you get that surface level information, and you got to focus on, there's an opening. Why is there an opening? And that's a simple first question. I'm fine with you. Just simply ask, why is there an opening? Was someone promoted? Did someone get fired? What's really going on there? And guys, the more that you dig deeper and understand what the problem is, again, you're also trying to provide your solution, but the more that you're digging deeper and deeper, you're doing this with the intention of building an actionable game plan. So say it on every call. I hate 30, 60, 90s, but I hate generic 30, 60, 90s. If you give me a specific game plan over the next 30, 60, 90 days, I don't give a shit what you title it. You could call it a 30, 60, 90. You could just say, territory strategic plan, whatever it is, but it's got to be strategic and actionable for that territory. So you got to get information on not only what are the challenges in the territory, but, who are your key customers? Who are customers that you're trying to get that haven't been willing to listen to a conversation? Who are your top customers, your top competitors' customers? Why aren't they using you? Which hospitals are you currently have access to? Which GPOs are you on formulary with? Which ones aren't? So you got to find out the availability of the drug. But you're doing all these things to create a game plan, a specific game plan that you can hand to that hiring manager. If you're focusing the conversations this way, what causes reps to struggle? What's your manager's management style? That's another important thing. So as you're building this game plan, you also are learning about the person that's hiring you. You need to know about that person's key drivers and then position yourself as a solution if you want to get a job. So you have to learn everything about that hiring manager, because they can straight up say, did you get interviewed by Susan, the hiring manager? Oh, you did? Great. What did you do to get the job? What are some of the things that that Susan does not like for someone to do? And what are some of the things that she does like? Because they can straight up say, and I've had this, do not show her 30, 60, 90. She hates those things, or they could say, if you give her a game plan, make it specific. Now, I got to give this specific game plan to her, as part of the interview process. You have to know who you're interviewing with and know what they like and dislike so you can tailor your game plan in the interview towards that individual. It's the same with doctors. I mean, I know I've told this before, when I first started in the OR, I didn't ask my customers if it's okay if I can use a laser pointer. That sounds stupid. Like, why wouldn't I be able to use a laser pointer? I can't physically touch the sterile area, and I got to instruct them on how to use one piece of equipment, versus the other, and go through a stepwise plan. But some of them will get so pissed off and to outright say to me, and I've had it say to me, please get that effing thing out of my face, it was awkward, but I never asked. Now, every time after that incident, I learned, I said, before we start, do you mind if I use a laser pointer? And 90% of them say, no problem. But the few that don't, you're going to piss them off. So the same thing, if I just ask the questions, just straight up, what do they like, dislike? You know, you could straight up saying this, I'm not here to waste your time, and bombard you with a lot of questions. I'm here to find out what's going on and how I can, position myself as a fit. And maybe I'm not a fit. But again, you don't know until you ask the questions. That's the whole takeaway, guys. But get deeper with your questioning. A lot of you get on there, you have your 3 or 5 questions that are very generic, asking about the culture. No one gives a shit about that, guys. Don't worry so much about culture. If you don't even know what the problem is in that territory, you should be finding out what's going on in that territory, not what is the company's culture. Because a lot of times culture is nonsense. Your manager can dictate the culture. I've worked at amazing companies with horrible, horrible managers, and they make my life a living hell. And then I worked at companies that were struggling, but then, or they were very, very strict overall as a company, but my manager knew how to navigate around that and knew what to bother us with and what not to. And so it was an easier, it wasn't such a rigid, work-life balance. It was, just he created something that was a little different. A lot of times your manager can dictate that. So don't focus so much about the culture, and about all the specifics of stuff that's not going to affect you about the company. You want to find out about that role, the people that are surrounding in that role, the doctors, your manager, the hospitals, all the individuals that affect that specific role. That's the information, not the broad questions about culture, not about PTO time and nonsense questions. That you don't ask until the 3rd or 4th interview when you're talking about benefits. That's when they're ready to make you an offer. You can get into all that. At the beginning, it's all business, comp, PTO, all those questions, expenses. The recruiter is going to give you that info. They're going to get that info to you. But if you're focusing on that during these calls, you're going to turn them off instantly. It's about that territory and providing a solution for that territory. We talked about key drivers. Next, guys, we talk about this a lot too. It's everyone is a risk. Every single individual that goes for any job in any industry is some sort of risk. It's no different than in medical sales. So because I've been doing this almost 25 years, that doesn't mean I don't come with any risks. I do many consulting agreements. I work with companies all around the world, and when I speak to them, they don't just go, yeah, he's our guy. We've seen his podcast. We know speaking to different, sales leaders, they speak highly of Joe. Like, no, when we speak, they could come in with a certain, perception of me, but I'm still a risk. And my job during those conversations is to reduce that risk. And that's what you have to do. Remember that hiring managers are always thinking, number one, is this person going to be a good fit with the team? Are they going to be a good fit with our customers? And are they going to be a good fit to work with me as the hiring manager? And if a lot of times you're going to say things in interviews, guys, where it could scare them off a little bit and you become more of a risk, and vice versa, the whole point is to reduce that risk. And that's what you got to be doing on these networking calls. If you ask yourself, did I just reduce the risk of for the individual that I spoke to today? Did I make them feel more comfortable to hire me? And it's not easy, guys, because a lot of times you might say, no, I don't feel like I did. I mean, I do that. I know I have sales calls, and I speak to people, and sometimes I'm like, I think I did a great job there. I really answered all their concerns, and then there's times I'm like, I could have done better. That kind of sucked. And I know I didn't really make an impact. But ask yourself that. After you got off the call, did you just ask questions and just gain all info? Or did you reduce some percentage of risk on this call by showing them how you're going to be the solution to their to their challenges? So it's very important, guys. So remember, we're all a risk to these hiring managers. Our job is to reduce risks. Again, some of these, even though we talked about some of the common mistakes, it's asking too many of those surface questions, guys. They don't have you'll know right away, just like in an interview, if it ends quickly, because I've been on these calls too, where after 2 or 3 minutes, they're looking to rush you off. And a lot of times, there could be times when they really are legitimately busy, but majority of the time is, oh man, this person is annoying the shit out of me. I got to get off this call, and you're not doing a good job. So one of the keys that a lot of people forget about, they don't come in with excitement. There's no excitement in their voice. Guys, if you want someone to hang up on the phone, and get off the phone with you quickly, come in very monotone. Hey, I saw the opening and I think I'd be a really good fit, or you come off very robotic. Talk about it with whatever you have an interest in. If it's football, for me, I'm a Bears fan. If I talk with someone about the Bears, I'm going to get more excited than talking to someone about fashion or something I don't really care about. So think of a topic that you really care about and look at yourself and how you act, and you give this excitement. I'm not saying you jump up and down with pom-poms like a cheerleader, and go over the top, but you should have some excitement. You should be smiling, even if you're on the phone. I guarantee you guys, smile on the other end of the phone. That's going to show excitement. They're going to feel that. There's a difference when you're smiling as opposed to when you're, talking real monotone. You could tell even over a phone call, so more, you got to smile and show excitement. Show that you really want this. Say you really want this. Say why you really want it. Talk about some of those challenges, especially after you've spoken to one rep and then you're getting another rep's information to speak to them. You want to come in with that same enthusiasm and let them know what you learned and how you provide a solution to some of their challenges. Guys, this is all part of the process. So that brings us up to the next point. Just because you speak to one rep and you network with one person at the company, a lot of you, I spoke to one rep at Stryker or wherever the company is, and I haven't heard back yet. The guy was really nice, but he said he'll get back to me once he hears of anything, or after he speaks to his manager about potentially, pushing me forward in this opening, but I haven't heard back yet. And a lot of you just wait. I'm like, no, guys. Number one, you got to follow up. Okay. So to follow up, the only way to do that is to leave off on the previous conversation with an appropriate next step. If your next step is, you want to learn by, if they told you the next step in the process will be to start interviewing next week, early next week. So you're going to put that down in your calendar, and then by Monday or Tuesday of next week, you're going to follow up. Okay. Because you're going to go by what you left, how you left the conversation. But if you leave the conversation open-ended, or you didn't schedule a next step in the process, if you didn't schedule something that you're looking to follow up on, then there's nowhere to go. So you want to make sure you're doing that first. But you're also at the same time, when you're speaking to these reps, you're trying to get a referral of the next rep to speak to, of the next person to network. Because you should be networking with so many individuals at that company that you don't give a shit if one or two people don't get back to you. But you don't want to just have everything on one rep. You spoke to the one rep, he gave you a lot of information. He was great. He was so nice. No, guys, you got to keep going from there. It's the same as your doctors. A lot of us do a terrible job of when we have a doctor that loves our product, loves our company, loves us, uses us all the time, and then we don't try to get more referrals from them. They're the easiest people to get referrals from. We get this awkward, I don't want to bother them. Everything's going well. So the last thing I want to do is piss off my number one doctor and ask him to do something for me. No, if he likes you and your product, and obviously he's getting good results, then he'll have friends that also think the way he does, have the same approach, that also can find the benefits in utilizing you and your product. So you got to get those referrals. So do the same thing. So remember though, guys, they know this too. They know that this is a reflection of how you sell. So if you're not trying to do that, that's a red flag too. They're never going to get pissed off. Don't worry about being annoying and asking, hey, is there any other reps that you think would be, that can provide more insight that I could speak to? Who are other high performers I could talk to? Who are other associate reps, especially the role that you're going for? that are doing well that I could pick their brain? Like just ask, guys. You got to ask. Worst thing they could do is say no, or they can't help you. At the end of the day, you're in the same spot you were before the call. So the worst thing that can happen is that they give you another referral. Who cares if they don't? But you got to try. You can't just depend on those one or two people, guys. That is key. Always look to push it further. Until you get that job, there's always a next step. There's always someone else to talk to. There's always more information you can get. This is why when we say it takes a lot of effort, it does. But that's why we don't want you reaching out to 50 companies and doing this same process, because you'll never be able to do it. It does take time. It does take effort. You can't build 50 business plans. I mean, that's not going to work. No. So what do people do? They reach out to 50 companies. They send a generic business plan that can plug in anywhere. Is it valuable? No, it's nonsense. A lot of people go, this doesn't mean shit to me. I can't use this. You printed this out on ChatGPT in 2 seconds. Why the hell would I listen to you? So you don't want that, guys. You want to make sure that you're focused on roles that you're qualified for, and then you're putting in all the effort that I'm talking about from the beginning of this call. And you got to do that, but you're not going to be able to do it effectively if you're reaching out to all these different companies. But I'm going to pause here for a sec. James, any questions from the crowd?
No, Joe. Show's over. See you guys later. Have a great day. We got
all right, a couple. Man, that was quick. It's because I'm wearing this white shirt, isn't it?
Yeah, it's because you have sun on your face and you're living in Miami, and I am miserable in the snow. I feel for anybody watching from the East Coast right now that's up in Northeast.
Yeah, I'm sorry for all you guys up there, man. I do feel bad.
Thought we were getting to the spring, Joe. I got TaylorMade, not the golf. Joe, I have a B2B sales background, but every time I reach out to med sales reps on LinkedIn, they just don't respond. Am I doing something wrong, or is it just a numbers game?
Well, I don't have the full details of what you're doing, but I know one of the a common mistake that a lot of reps make and fit the description that you're saying is they just reach out to sales reps. Okay. They'll reach out to anyone that's a medical sales rep. Doesn't matter what company they work for. Doesn't matter where they are, where they're located. They're just reaching out to people because they want to learn more. Or maybe they take it a step further. And if they are interviewing at Stryker, they reach out to any Stryker rep that they know. Now you guys got to understand, Stryker is an absolute monster company. They got so many departments and divisions. It's crazy. There's so many different departments there, so you want to make sure that you start with where the opening is. If it's in their cardiac division in Boston, then that's where you want to start networking with Stryker cardiac reps that live in that Boston area. And then you branch out from there. You start in Boston and then you keep expanding that radius, further and further, but start there first. Because if you reach out to someone in Boise, Idaho, that's in the cardiac division, odds are they're going to be less likely to help you than the individual that works in that territory or in that area. They're the ones that are going to most likely going to be a teammate, or they're the ones that know the hiring manager. So when you have that opening, start with people that are connected to the hiring manager that work in the division, because odds are those are the sales reps. So if it's Boston, Stryker, cardiology, put those searches in LinkedIn in the search bar, and you're going to see a bunch of names come up. Start reaching out. Start reaching out to them. If there's requirements that were put into the job posting, you can mention one or two, that they're looking for. If they're looking for a B2B sales rep in the Boston area, quickly say this: hey, Bob, I see that you have an opening, an associate opening for XYZ job in the Boston area, looking for B2B sales experience. I think I'd be a great fit with 2 years of B2B sales experience, living right in the Back Bay section of Boston. Would love to schedule a call for a couple minutes to learn, more about the position. Something simple like that. But reach out to people that are in those divisions first. Majority of the time, if you're a fit, you're not going to have everyone reach back out to you guys. It's still a low number, but people will reach back out to you. they're more likely to if you're going to contacting the right people that are connected to that opening.
We got Coffee and Chaos. I have a clinical background and everyone keeps telling me to use my network, but like my network is all nurses and doctors. How do I translate that?
That's a great where to start. Doctors and nurses know sales reps. Doctors especially know hiring managers. So if you're good friends with a doctor, pick Dr. Jones right now. Talk to Dr. Jones. Hey, I'm looking to break into the industry, and straight up ask him, are there any sales managers that you have a good relationship with that I can reach out to? And get that doctor to cut just like a friend. Well, how often, you have I get this all the time. I need a plumber. Oh, my buddy Bob, he's a plumber. Okay, great. I'm going to text you and Bob and let him know that you're my friend, and you guys work it out from there. Hey, Bob, my friend Joe, he needs a plumber at his house. You guys can take it from here. Hey, nice to meet you, Bob. And then the dialogue starts, and then you get off the text chain, and you guys have your own, conversation later on. Do the same thing. Get that doctor. If he's that close with you, that doctor, that nurse, could be that receptionist, anyone. They all deal with sales reps. They all deal with these hiring managers. Okay. Have them reach out to the person with you on that text. Do you think that sales rep is going to ignore a receptionist that is the gatekeeper for them to get into the office? If you need help and you ask them, hey, can you help me out? You think they're going to ignore that? Odds are they're not, guys. And shame on them if they do. Never mind the doctor now saying, hey, I got this, this Joe Licata who's looking to break in the industry. Great guy. I think he'd be an awesome fit at your company. He's going to reach out to you to learn more. Now, guys, sometimes they could take the call just to pacify the doctor. Who gives a shit? Your job now is to close it. Is to provide, why are you the solution? What are their problems and why are you the solution? And that's where you get that opportunity. But if you have a huge network of clinical people, you got to utilize that. Don't think they're just doctors. They don't work for companies. They have relationships with people at these companies. You just need to bridge the gap and get them to get in front of them. And that's going to help your chances.
I got Midwest Dave 33. Joe, what do you think about going to a competitor event or conferences just to network? I've done it before and always feels a little awkward.
A competitor event? Is that what it was? I'm sorry.
Or conferences.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, conferences and they're, I'm going to keep it real, guys. Can you make relationships at a conference? Can you build relationships? Absolutely. But it costs money. It's usually not as easy as it sounds. You got to make sure that this is a field you want to get into, because a lot of the conferences typically are like a very niche conference. For instance, I used to work in cardiology, and we had the Heart Rhythm Society, HRS, every year. That's a huge conference for cardiac, but if I want to be an ortho rep, or if that's really where I'm I have more interest in, why would I go to a cardiology conference to speak to reps? That's where I'm not focusing on my end goal. And that's where you can waste a lot of time. So if you're going to do that, make sure this is a field you want to get into. If it's a pharmaceutical conference and you want to get into med device, why are you going to a pharmaceutical conference? So make sure it's really specific. But I think there's so many other avenues besides conferences. I mean, you can always do that. Are they my first choice when it comes to networking? No. You have so many people on LinkedIn that you could spend forever reaching out to these people. So until you really hit roadblocks there, I wouldn't make the conferences my next priority.
I got Mike Anders. Do you think reps should be building their personal brand on social media to help with networking, or is that overkill? I get LinkedIn, but other platforms.
I can tell you right now, one of my strongest, as James knows, is LinkedIn. Especially in our business, guys. Yes, I'm sure there's millions of other people that do a much better job than I'm doing on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, and have much bigger followings. But when it comes to LinkedIn, that is the bread and butter for our industry. So I wouldn't worry so much about being, because a lot of times in our industry, the reps that are really well known on TikTok, and not to put them down, but it's just what I see. I see the followers, and they got 100 times as many followers as I do, but I'm watching their videos, and they're doing the whole morning routine with their shirt off. They're 25. They're all ripped up. They look great. They're having their protein shake, and they're then drive to the office, and it says 5:30 in the morning. So they're showing how early they get up, and then they get to the hospital, and then you're like, they didn't provide one piece of content that actually can help you out. It's just, look how good I look. Is that the image you want to give? That might be. I don't know how it's going to help you get a job, but if you want to create your brand, you could do it so easily on LinkedIn, and focus on, like I said, that banner. Focus on what your title is underneath. Do you just put your job title? No. You could put some of your accolades in there, 5-time President's Club winner, whatever, just by putting aspiring medical sales rep. At least people know that that's what you're looking to do. But then you could go into your about section and tell your story. I mean, there's so many areas on LinkedIn that people don't capitalize on. Look at the reps, and there's a lot of reps out there that still don't do it. And they're just giving up a perfect opportunity. So bottom line, I would focus on LinkedIn. I would 100% post. Posting is so underutilized with a lot of reps. You want people to know about you, start posting. You will get in front of people. People are going to start recognizing your name. So just think of that, guys. Think of just one post. That hiring manager can see you, can see your thoughts, can see your enthusiasm. And now you got an interview coming up. They already know you a little bit. That helps. That's the whole building a relationship, networking. That's all part of it. The more familiar they are, like we said, now you're less of a risk. The greater your chances are to get a job. So I would 100% focus on LinkedIn. It could keep you busy forever. I 100% not even close to, being a master on LinkedIn, but it's helped me tremendously because that's where all our hiring managers are. Those are where all the people in our industry gravitate to the most. I would focus there over everything else.
Lisa Carver. Joe, I started watching you about a month ago, and I finally worked with the courage to start reaching out to people. My question is, how personal should your first message be? I don't want to sound like a copy and paste robot, but I also don't want to know these people. I also want to know these people at all.
Yeah. I mean, just be real. They know that you're reaching out, just be clear. I'm reaching out because you have an opening in your cardiac division, for endocrinology. I'd be a great fit. And then mention one or two of the requirements that they're asking for in the job posting. Let them know that you actually read the requirements and that you're a fit. And you love to have a conversation with them. That's it. You don't have to say, oh, as a fellow Bears fan, because you checked out on their account and see they're a Bears fan. Guys, does that work for you? Because I know for me, I don't give a shit. I'm straight up. If someone looked up and found out that I was a Bears fan, I don't really care if they want a job for me, if that really going to help. But if they did the research ahead of time, that one of the biggest problems I'm having is access. And then they talk about quickly, understand how access is a major obstacle at your company. I was able to provide solutions at my previous company. Would love to share, how I could provide the same solutions here, and you could put that into your message. That's more important than, as a fellow Villanova guy, or I know you're a big Wildcats fan, and guys, that's knowing the college and all that's, yes, you should know that. But at the end of the day, that's not what's going to help you. It's showing them how you provide a solution for that job. So whatever you want to put in that message, that's more important than getting more personal and talking about, stupid things that most people don't care about. It's especially on LinkedIn, it's about business. It's about providing solutions, bringing value. Think that way when you're reaching out to them, and that should help you.
I don't know, Joe. If I found out that you were a Bears fan, I'd probably run the other way and not even apply.
Right. And I would run, dive right into working for a Jets fan.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the
Smart
winners
guy.
are.
Real smart guy, those Jets fans. Derek Solis. Joe, how do you feel about reps networking heavily when they're still currently employed? Like, does that come across as disloyal, or is it just smart career management?
No, it's smart career management. I don't look at it. I can see the point that I think you're trying to make, which is it's fair point to say, oh, well, if this person's going to look for another job, when they work at their company, then they're going to do the same thing here. And no, that's not the case. You're looking for a better fit. We don't know what's going on at your previous company. And these guys, they've all been in your shoes. They've all worked for people that they don't want to work for. They worked at companies that started to fall apart, or they promised them a bill of goods that they didn't live up to their end of the bargain. I mean, guys, they've done all this. So that's okay. My question is, how else are you going to do it? You got to network. You got to network again with intention. Less is more. Go at less amount of companies. Don't go at 100 openings, because you're going to spread yourself too thin, and you're not going to dig deep enough. That's the problem. That's where the networking becomes a problem, where people are just reaching out to reach out. No, you got to reach out with intention. Are you providing solutions? Are you reaching out to many people at the company? Are you building a business plan? Are you doing all this? Then you are never going to go wrong. And it doesn't matter, no company is going to look at you like, oh, you're working somewhere else and now here you are trying to get a new job. No, they get it. So don't pump the brakes there, but just be more intentional with who you're reaching out to.
I got Tiffany Russo. She wants to know, Joe, do you think going to like local hospital foundation events or health system fundraisers is a legit way to get your foot in the door? Or is that too much of a reach?
Well, I think you don't have to be, I got a better idea for you. Just go to a hospital. Just sit in the lobby. That simple. Guys, everyone's allowed in the lobby. You could sit in that lobby. You're going to see reps coming in and out. And this is a good test for you guys, especially if a lot of you that don't have sales experience. Let's see what you're made of. For all you listening, I want you to do that this week. This is the test. I want you to go to the lobby and spend as many hours as you can. And you could bring your computer. You could do other work. For a lot of you that are remote, I know a lot of you in other sales positions, I'm not saying to spend 8 hours a day, 50 hours a week, whatever that is. No, but just a couple hours a day. Maybe you go to a hospital during your lunch, and sit there for an hour, and you'll run into a couple of reps. Be aggressive. Get in front of them. Start having a conversation. It's not easy. I'm telling you guys, it's not, but it will get easier, and then you'll get more comfortable approaching people. And this will be a great training, especially if you really want to get in this role. So don't worry about going to the sponsored events, and you could just go to a hospital. Go sit in the cafeteria. You'll see doctors there. You'll see nurses. You'll see other reps. Go up to them. Start talking to them. What's going to hurt? It doesn't matter, guys. You got to be aggressive that way. Got to be out there. As long as you go up to someone with a smile, you're not annoying. You're not, as they're eating a sandwich, jumping in front of them. You're just saying hello, introducing yourself, but I would start with those sales reps. You could go in the lobby or a cafeteria. You're going to see sales reps. Start in the lobby because they're going to be walking in there. You can pick them out from a mile away. They're usually dressed nice. They got their company bags, or they got equipment bags. I mean, you'll see them, guys. And once you start recognizing them, you're going to recognize them more and more easily each time. But I would start there and start having conversations. Don't worry about going to the hospital-sponsored events and to that next level. There's plenty of work to be done just going to a different hospital every day.
I got Chris Beaumont, I guess. Beaumont. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Joe, what do you think about reps who job hop a lot? Does that kill your network reputation over time?
So I'm very realistic when it comes to job hopping. I think it's unfair how a lot of these companies, because I get it all the time. They'll put in when we do the recruiting for many of our clients, they'll say, hey, Joe, like no job hoppers in the job posting. And it's not really fair, because a lot of these individuals, our industry, it's no secret, it's very volatile. You could be doing great one year, be a 2-time President's Club winner. The next year you're laid off because they downsized. That's not your fault. You didn't want to leave. So there's a lot of times that you'll see people with 3 jobs in 5 years, and it's not always their fault. So, but if you catch yourself, leaving a couple of times in a row because you're unhappy, you're leaving because you're unhappy, you got to understand, guys, sometimes the grass isn't always greener, and it is going to make your life harder each time you pick up and leave. I understand. I've been there where I was unhappy and I wanted to go somewhere else, but it does come with some baggage that every time you do that, because if you do it more and more often, it's just something that hiring managers are going to see on your resume. And they, not every time, but a lot of times, the more people job hop, the more likely they are to pass on you. So I agree. I'm on your side. I don't think it's fair, because I think the reality is a lot of people, they just, this is the way our industry is. Products change, reimbursements change, leadership changes, and it makes you want to, go for, a more positive or a better next landing step. But just realize the reality is the hiring managers, the more they see that, the more likely they are to pass.
I got James Whitfield. What a great name, James. I'm currently transitioning from B2B tech sales, and I'm finding that my outreach to med sales professionals gets minimal response. Would you say that the messaging approach needs to be fundamentally different, or is it more about targeting the right people?
Well, it's both. It's your messaging. And again, I don't know exactly what you're sending, but when people are getting ghosted over and over and over, it's targeting, number one, because if I reach out to someone that knows nothing about an opening and just reaching out just to shoot the shit, that's less likely to help. They're less likely to get back to me than someone that has an opening, has a need at their company, they need it to be filled. They're more likely to get back to me. So a lot, I know coaches teach this too, where you want to speak to someone before there is an opening. Yeah, but I also don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did know when an opening is about to come up. I like when reps just reach out to people with a focus where there's an opening first, and then you contact them. So targeting is definitely key. And then depending on what your messaging is, if you see you're not getting responses over and over and over again, change it up. But one of the things too, you got to learn their pain points. You got to know something that's going on there, or at the very least, start with that job description and explain why you're a fit, not war and peace, quick couple of bullets, and ask to get on a call with them to learn more, or ask to show them that you could provide more value, something along those lines that you show that you give some effort. But just that cold outreach, cut and paste, very generic, anything more generic, anything more cut and paste, guys, people are going to see through that and they're not going to respond.
So you're saying no novellas?
Yes.
Okay.
That's good.
Priya Nair. I've heard conflicting advice. Some say reach out directly to hiring managers. Others say build relationships with reps first. What's your take on the most strategic entry point when you're trying to break in with no existing connections in the space?
Okay. And I'm not totally against reaching straight out to a hiring manager, but if I'm going to get one chance to speak to someone, I'll throw the question back at you. What if that hiring manager, Bob Smith from Stryker, well, say Stryker again, just because I've said it 15 times during this call. So Bob Smith, he's a hiring manager. You reach out to Bob, and then a day later you reach out to a rep, and you find out more about Bob from that rep, and that rep tells you, don't reach out directly to Bob. He hates that. Okay. Now you're going to go, shit, I wish I knew this at a time. So I prefer that you reach out to the reps first to learn about the hiring manager. That's the goal. You want to be able to when you get in front of them, you want to have all your ducks lined in a row. You want to know as much as you can, know all Bob's key drivers and how you provide the solution to whatever challenges he's having. If you get all that information first and then you approach Bob, that's different, because it might be, don't reach out to Bob. And if you didn't know that, you're going to blow, your first chance with him. So I suggest reaching out to reps first to learn about that hiring manager and then adjust your game plan depending on what you learn from them.
Rachel Dumont, loving this conversation. Quick question. When you land an informational interview with a rep or manager, what's the one thing you should always do before the call to make a strong impression?
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Can you please repeat that? I'm sorry.
She said she loves the conversation. But when you land a informational interview with a rep or manager, what's the one thing you should always do before the call to make a strong impression?
So the one thing you could do, well, first off, is doing your research. The more research you do, the better. But there's two different approaches, because if we're talking about the hiring manager, then the one thing you should do is be speaking to reps to learn about that individual. If we're talking about a rep, there's only so much prep you could do when you're speaking to a rep first, because they're the ones that are supposed to be giving you that intel to help you with the hiring manager. But when it comes to calling a rep first, I would just make the questions just not those stupid questions like we talked about. Tell me about the culture, like those big, far away from that territory. Focus on that territory. Focus on what is going on at that territory. Why is there an opening? What did the previous rep do that, for any reason it didn't work out? Or what are those top reps doing to help them excel? What did you do in the interview process to get the job? Who are the key customers in that account or in that position, in that territory? Who are some of the ones you're the business you're trying to gain from whatever hospitals or other, clinicians? It's finding out more about that territory. That's the best thing you can do. So sometimes you're not going to get any information till you speak to a rep. So I would just focus on that territory. And again, how you provide the solution. Those are the best things you can do.
I got Andrew Kim. Joe, curious on your thoughts on internal networking within your own company. A lot of reps I know focus entirely externally, but ignore building relationships with their own leadership and cross-functional teams.
Yeah. So if you're networking internally, that's the question.
They want to know what your thoughts are on internal networking within your own company.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I'm a huge fan of that. That's a warm lead for them, especially if there's an opening in another division. But you want to be doing that. That's a good point for anyone. Whenever you start a new role, don't just be, in sales, we can get put on islands quickly where you're in a car all day long. You speak to your manager. You might speak to one or two of your colleagues. And other than that, you're by yourself, so you seclude yourself a lot, and you don't want to get into that position. You want to build network in marketing. You want to build a network in HR, in tech support, again, you want to be a team player, but you want to work well with all these other individuals, and sometimes in different departments, in different divisions, so the more that you're working that from day one, the better your chances are to maybe make an internal move to another division. But if you're constantly approaching this like, hey, I just got to focus on my territory in sales and that's it, and I'm going to do this by myself, it's going to kick you in the ass in the end. So from day one, when you're hired, make sure you're networking and working in those other departments and building those relationships, and it's going to help you.
I got one more for you, Joe. We got time for that?
Yeah.
All right. We got Robert Kavanaugh. From a sales leadership's perspective, I can always tell when a candidate has networked intentionally before reaching out. The quality of their questions is completely different. Do you explicitly coach candidates on how to research before they connect?
1,000%. 1,000%. That's the key. Because we don't want, again, we hear people all the time. I network. Joe, I don't know what's going on. I'm networking and I'm not getting calls back. And then we dig deeper and we see that they're not putting the effort in. We see that they're just, reaching out, cutting and pasting, not contacting people with an opening, not understanding the pain points. The more that the better. but we're not going to waste time also on learning, because this is when I say doing research, that doesn't mean researching the products and learning every SKU, every little minuscule part about that device and things that they're going to teach you in training. I care more that you understand who the competition is and why people use them over your product, or why doctors use your product over another. That's more important than knowing every possible spec about a device, which sometimes it takes weeks to learn these products. They don't expect you to know everything. They're going to teach you that, but they want you to understand what the landscape is, what the challenges are in that territory. The more that you can know about that, the better you're going to be. And we teach that.
That's all we got today, Joe.
That's all we got. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, James. Again, another great call, another great show. Great questions, guys. Again, if you have any other questions, please shoot me a DM. If there's something we couldn't get to, if you have any other topics or things that are pressing that you guys want me to talk about, don't feel bashful to reach out to me. Reach out to me anytime. Again, guys, anyone who's struggling to get into this industry and you keep waiting, thinking things are going to change, it's not going to change. Okay. Don't want to be doom and gloom. Reach out to us. We will help you break in. Go on RepPath.com. or shoot me a DM on LinkedIn, and we'll help you get into this industry with the RepPath Academy. As you can see there on the screen, these are the times that it takes to get in. We're going to drastically reduce the time it takes. These are the companies that we've helped place, and these are the individuals, you could see their real live testimonials. So reach out to us today. Lastly, any lobby members, if you want to get additional discounts, please give the promo code Licata. You could see that on the screen, LICATA, and you could get additional discounts. Other than that, guys, thank you. Great call today. Thanks for everyone's participation. And as always, we'll see you every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So if I don't talk to you guys, see you Wednesday at 3. Have a great day.